If you ever saved a bunch of articles, downloaded a few PDFs, and watched some YouTube videos on a topic, and then a month later realized you couldn't remember any of it, you're not alone. The collecting part is easy. The synthesizing part is where everything falls apart. Hi, I'm Jamie and welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to show you a workflow that uses two tools together. NotebookLM is where you feed in your sources and ask questions. Obsidian is where the polished notes live long term, so you can actually find them and connect them later. Now, quick note before we get started, if you don't use Obsidian, that's totally fine. I will show you how to set that up though. You could swap it for any notes app like Apple Notes, Notion, even a folder of text files. The workflow still works. The point isn't the specific app, it's the system. So by the end of this video, you'll have a repeatable way to turn messy research into notes you'll actually use. We're going to build it around a real topic so you can see it work in practice. I'm going to research how to build a sleep routine that actually works, something I'm sure that most of us probably could use. Let's get into it. First step, head over to notebooklm.google.com. I'll put the link down below as well. You'll need a Google account to sign in. Once you're in, you'll see your notebooks on the home screen. I have a few here from past projects. We're going to make a new one. So we're going to click on Create New up in the corner. Now, a quick orientation before we add anything. NotebookLM is laid out into these three panels. Your sources sit on the left. That's everything you've imported. The chat is in the middle. That's where we're going to ask questions. And on the right is the outputs panel, like mind maps, audio overviews, slide decks, that kind of thing. We're not going to be using the outputs panel today because we're feeding insights into Obsidian instead, but it's here if you want to explore it on your own. Now, three panels, sources, chat, outputs, that's the whole interface. Now, before we add any sources, one quick rule that matters more than people realize: one topic per notebook. Don't make one giant notebook called research and dump everything into it. NotebookLM works better when the sources are focused. The more your sources have in common, the sharper the answers it can give you. So I'm going to name this notebook Sleep Routine Research. It's going to be specific enough that I know what's in it, broad enough that I can add a few different sources without going off topic. Now, let's add some sources. I'm going to add 3 different types so you can see how each one works. First, I'm going to go ahead and just change the name of this notebook to what I mentioned, Sleep Routine Research. Now, first, what I want to do is add a YouTube video. And I'm going to grab this one right here, Matthew Walker's TED Talk called Sleep is Your Superpower. He's a sleep researcher. And I'm just going to go ahead and take this link. I'm just going to go copy, or you could go Control C. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to add this as a source. I'm going to click right here. You can see YouTube in the link, and I'm just going to paste that in. So I can go Insert. And now this is getting added. Second, a PDF I downloaded. It's a guide from the Sleep Foundations on healthy sleep habits. And I'm just going to drag it in. So I'm going to add source, and I have it up top, and I downloaded it here. And I'm going to just drag and drop it. And you're going to see that I have 2 sources now. Third is this Harvard website, and I'm going to go and just copy this URL here and go back to the notebook, and I'm going to go add source and go to website, and I'm just going to go paste it in like this and click insert. So that's it. 3 sources, a video, a PDF, and a web page. NotebookLM doesn't care what format your sources are in. It treats them all the same once they're in the notebook. One thing worth saying here, the quality of what you put in sets the ceiling on what you can get out. If you import 5 low quality blog posts that all repeat the same thing, NotebookLM can't give you a much sharper answers than the sources can. So spend a little time picking sources you actually trust before you import them. Okay, the sources are in. Now let's actually use the thing. The approach I use is simple. Start broad, then narrow. Most people make one of 2 mistakes here. They either ask one super specific question right away and miss the bigger picture, or they ask, what's this about, and get a generic summary that doesn't help them. The better approach is to start with a question that helps you understand what's in the documents overall. Then follow up with sharper questions that pull out the specifics you actually need. So my first question is, what are the most important habits these sources agree on for building a better sleep routine? I'm going to submit. Okay, now look at this. It's pulling from the 3 sources and giving me the points where they overlap. Consistent wake up time, limiting screen time before bed, keeping the room cool and dark, cutting caffeine in the afternoon. And here's the part I really want to point out. See these little number citations? every claim it makes is linked back to the source it came from. If I click one, it takes me right to the spot in the original document. So that matters. It means I can verify what it's telling me instead of just trusting it. AI tools that don't show you their work are tools you can't trust for research. Now, let's narrow. I'm going to follow up with something more specific. Why does the research say specifically about consistent wait time? Why does this matter more than people think? Better. Now I'm getting the actual mechanism. It's pulling from the Walker talk and explaining the circadian rhythm in a way I can actually use. Now, one more follow-up, and this one's going to be sneaky useful. What do these sources disagree about? Or where do they emphasize different things? Let's submit. This is the question most people don't ask. It's the one that surfaces the nuance. The Walker talk emphasizes the cost of sleep deprivation. The Sleep Foundation, the guide, is more practical and tactical. The Harvard article sits in the middle. Knowing where your sources differ tells you something about how settled the advice actually is. While we're here, there's a related move that doesn't get talked about enough. You can go ahead and toggle these sources off or on. Uncheck one and NotebookLM stops drawing from that in the chat. So let me show you why this matters. I'm going to turn off this Sleep Foundation guide and re-ask the same disagreement question. Now look at the answer. It's noticeably different. Without that practical guide in the mix, the response leans harder on the research side. Talks more about the circadian biology and less about the day-to-day habits. Same question, different sources, different answers. Now, this is useful for two reasons. First, if your one source is dominating the conversation and you want to hear from others, you can mute it. Second, it shows you something important. The answers you get aren't just what NotebookLM knows, they're shaped by what you put in and what you leave active. You're driving. Now, I'm going to turn this Sleep Foundation guide back on before we move forward. One more thing in NotebookLM before we move on to Obsidian. There's a feature called custom instruction, and most people don't even touch it, and it's a quiet game changer. So by default, NotebookLM responds in a neutral tone, but you can tell it how to respond. So we're going to go up top here to configure Notebook, and we're going to find this custom option. So define your conversational goal, style, or role. I'm going to click custom. And I'm going to give it this right here. Explain things like you're a sleep researcher talking to someone who's a complete beginner. Skip the jargon, use plain language, give practical examples. And now I'm just going to save it. You can also pick your length. I'm going to leave it on default. I'm going to run this question one more time just so you can see the difference. See the difference? The first version was more textbooky. This version is more conversational. It uses examples. It feels like talking to a person who actually knows the material instead of reading a research summary. You can do this for any topic. Tell it to respond like a teacher or a skeptic or a busy executive who needs the bottom line. It shapes the whole conversation. All right, we've done the research, we've asked good questions, we've gotten useful answers. Now comes the part most tutorials skip, and it's the part that actually decides whether any of this matters a week from now. We have to get the good stuff out of NotebookLM and into a place where we'll actually use it. Now, here's Obsidian. If you don't have it, it's free and works on Mac, Windows, and Linux. Like I said up top, you could use any notes app you want. The principle is the same. A quick word on why people pick Obsidian for this kind of thing, because it's a fair question. Two reasons stand out. First, your notes are just plain text files stored on your own computer. They belong to you. If Obsidian ever disappeared tomorrow, every note would still open in any text editor. Now, that matters if you're building something you want to keep for years. Second, and this one's the bigger one, notes can link to other notes, not just folders and search, actual connections between ideas. So over time, that's what makes this note app feel less like a file cabinet and more like a thinking partner. If neither of those things matter to you much, honestly, I would say any note app works fine. The workflow doesn't care. If you're sticking with Obsidian, the first thing we need to do is set up something called a vault. That name sounds fancy, but the concept is simple. A vault is just a folder on your computer where Obsidian keeps your notes. That's it. So when you create one, Obsidian asks you to pick a location on your hard drive, makes a folder there, and then that folder becomes your vault. Every note you write lives inside that folder as a plain text file. Now, I'm already opened my Obsidian here. If you went and installed it, it should just ask you by default with it. I have to go down here and I'm going to go manage vaults, and you can see I can go and create a new one right here. Now, this connects directly what I just said about ownership. Your notes aren't sitting in someone's company database. They're files in a folder you can open, copy, back up, move around whenever you want. The vault is what makes this true. So you can have as many vaults as you want, one for work, one for personal notes, one for a specific project. They stay completely separate from each other. A vault is just a big commitment. It's just a folder. I'm going to make this one just called research. I can go and pick my location. I'm just going to keep it in my documents, select folder, and we're going to go and create. Now, like I showed you before, if you want to go back and create more vaults, if I click on research down here and go to manage vaults, you'll get this back to open. Now you'll notice that we have this welcome note. We don't really need this. I'm going to be just quickly adding a couple notes here just for some demo purposes later on. Let's make a new note and we're just going to call this one daily routines. And you can see it right here. If I want to delete any of these, if I don't want this welcome one, I can just right click and you can see I can delete it. I'll delete it. And notice now I only have my daily routines right over here left. Let's add one more example just that we can use them when we start adding some information from our NotebookLM. I'm going to create a new one, and this time I'm going to call this morning habits. So we don't have them linked yet. I'll show you how to add some information and how we can start linking. The first thing I want to address is what people always ask. Is there a way to automatically transfer everything from NotebookLM into Obsidian? Short answer, not really. And honestly, that's a feature, not a bug. Here's why. If you auto-transferred every word NotebookLM gave you, you'd just be rebuilding the same mess in a different app. The whole point of this workflow is to force you to pick what's worth keeping. Manual transfer makes you stop and ask, is this actually useful to me? Will I come back to it? That filtering is the work. It's what turns the information into knowledge you own. So here's what I do. I go back to NotebookLM and I look at the responses I got and I pick out, 2 or 3 things that I felt genuinely useful. Not just everything, just the keepers. So let's say I go and grab this paragraph right here. And I'm just going to go Control-C, or you can right click and copy. I'm going to move over to Obsidian. I'm going to go and make a new note and just call it sleep routine core habits. Now I can go ahead and paste that information right in here. Now, if I want, I could tighten the wording, put some of my own words and notes into it. I'm not going to do that in this demo, but I just want to point out those are things that you could add to this to make this, just to pull out those key points that can help you access it later. Then I can add a couple tags. So in Obsidian, I can go ahead and use hashtags. So I'm going to add this. Health, habits, sleep. So tags are useful because later, if I'm looking for everything I've ever saved about habits, I can pull it up with just one click. And the most important part, linking. Obsidian's superpower is that you can link any note to another note. I have an existing note here called daily routines. So I'm going to use the double square brackets and type its name. So if I just press the double square brackets twice, notice how it drops down and I have daily routines right here. I can go ahead and select it. Now this new note is connected to the older one. If I open up daily routines note, this new one will show up as a connection. Over time, this is what builds up. You don't just have a folder of notes, you have a web of ideas that link to each other. That's why people keep using Obsidian for years. It gets more valuable the more you put into it. So keep this part simple. Make the note, add a tag or two, link it to something, that's it. You don't need to learn every Obsidian feature on day one. Last step, go back to NotebookLM and retire the notebook. The job is done. The synthesized stuff is in Obsidian. The notebook was never meant to be the storage spot. It was the processing spot. This is the part that took me a little while to get comfortable with. It feels wrong to retire a notebook you spent time on, but that's not what's happening. The valuable part has been moved to a place where you can actually find it again. The notebook itself was scaffolding. If I had to sum up the philosophy in one line, NotebookLM gets you oriented fast. Obsidian is where the knowledge actually lives. That's the whole point of pairing them. Thanks for watching this time. I'll see you next week on Teacher's Tech with more tech tips and tutorials.